Okay. So first of all, to begin with our discussion today, um, when we say ethics, yeah, when we say ethics, ethics is also known as moral philosophy. And when we say ethics, ito yung capability or capacity ng isang tao or ability ng isang individual to be able to classify and identify the wrong deeds from the right deeds. But then, it is said that classifying or determining right deeds from wrong deeds is easier or easy. Pero since us as humans, we are inherently selfish. So yun yung in a general manner or in a business manner, yun yung nagpapahirap or yun yung isa sa mga dilemma kung bakit nahihirapan tayo maklasify kung ano ba yung dapat natin gawin or nahihirapan tayo i-classify if yung dapat ba natin gawin is ethical or unethical. So, inherent selfishness of humans also sometimes leads to business people uh, having a problem kung paano mababalance yung pag-gain ng profit or pagbabalik ng profit sa shareholders and saving the planet. So, that's for inherent selfishness of humans. So, invisible hand is a theory proposed by Adam Smith. And according to Adam Smith, business owners or us as individuals, since we are selfish nga, naturally, in the process, we are unconsciously doing good deeds. Pero dun sa good deeds na yun, or since nakagawa tayo ng since nakagawa tayo ng good deed unconsciously, during the process, there are possibilities na yung nagagawa natin is unethical. Pero it doesn't matter kasi by the end of or at the end of the day, whatever we did is still a good deed. That's under invisible hand. So, one of the examples ng invisible hand is the sponsorship of Coca-Cola, McDonald's, Samsung, and other brands sa Olympics. Now, the reason why it is a good deed because it is supporting the athletes, it is supporting the organization. Ang magandang or ang advantage ng brands na to in supporting Olympics is of course, since maraming manonood, since maraming pumupunta sa stadium to watch the Olympics, malaki yung or there is a bigger possibility na maraming mag-purchase or may mga purchase or bumili sa products nila. But then the reason why this is ethically questionable is because this Olympics, 2008 Olympics, which was held in China, it was ethically questionable by the critics because, as we all know, China or Chinese people have questionable human rights track record as well as some unethical activities, which made the critics or other people think or ask kung bakit sinuport pa rin ng brands na to yung Olympics despite the fact that despite the history of China. So that is the only reason why people were questioning this certain brands sa pag-support sa Olympics that was held in China.
Hello po, good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, nahirapan akong pumasok sa laptop ko. Nag-mobile na lang ako, tapos balik ko.
Ayos lang po. Ayos lang po yan. Okay. So, according to Markula Center of Applied Ethics, when we say ethics daw, it is it is based on standards of right and wrong that dictate what humans should do. So basically, when we say ethics, determining what is wrong from right, but at the same time, dito rin nakadepende kung tayo as individuals or tayo as business owners or future business owners, paano tayo magre-react to certain situations. Lalo na kapag ang situation is requiring us to respond real time. So that's how Markula Center of Applied Ethics is about. So one example under this theory is Uber. So Uber started around 2013, 2014. And during that period or during that time, nagkaroon sila ng issue about exploiting the information na binibigay ng customers nila sa application. So this project, or they have this certain project which they call Project Grayball. Grayball is a software used by Uber as a part of their VTOS program, or Violation on Terms and Service program. Violation of Terms and Service program, wherein kasi most especially during 2014, wherein yun nga, bago pa lang nag-ooperate yung Uber, and there are some states wherein they failed to secure permits. So those states and countries, technically,
Sa
legally,
Pinas din, di ba? Hindi sila nakakuha ng ano.
yes po.
Parang nawala ng ano, grab na lang yung natira.
Hindi sila nakakuha ng license sa LTO and LTO. So,
Ano bang reason nun?
I think from what I can remember, medyo na political yung sa Pilipinas. That's why from Uber, nag-merge sila with Grab, kaya nawala yung Uber sa Pilipinas. So, they failed to obtain permits and licenses not only sa United States but to some countries outside United States. So the cities that were mentioned were Boston, Paris, and Las Vegas. And
Paris na rin.
yes po, pero nung unang-una silang nag-ooperate, hindi sila nakakuha ng permit. If they are not operating legally, they are banned to operate.
Kasi yung last time nasa Paris ako, nag-Uber ako. Okay naman.
Yes po. Pero yun nga, nung nag-start pa lang sila, parang ang gusto kasi nila mangyari is mag-operate agad sila. Kasi syempre, malaki yung ginastos nila. Diba? Para bumalik agad yung yung capital na nilabas nila. So, countries also like Australia, China, and South Korea, during the early stage ng Uber, hindi sila allowed mag-operate sa countries na yun. Now,
nakapa-cooperate na.
So, what Uber did, kasi, since they are operating illegally, or technically they are banned from operating, what they did is they would launch like a fake software kapag na-detect nila na yung magbo-book or yung mag-hail ng cab nila is someone from the government. Most especially yung police, someone from the police department, like that. So,
hirap naman ang kailangan pa nilang i-check kung kaninong number kaya ito.
Yes, actually, ang ginawa po nila is, di ba,
paano naman nila malalaman? Mobile number lang naman nandun.
Yes po, pero yung geolocation ng cellphone mismo, nakukuha nila through the Grayball software. So, not only the geolocation ng cellphone, kung let's say kung nasaan sila, let's say nasa office sila, kung ilang beses nilang binuksan yung application while nandun sila sa location na yun. And sometimes, kasi sa United States, para magkaroon ng card or ng credit card, kailangan dumaan sa credit union. So, ang ginawa or through the help of Grable, nakuha nila yung information ng customer because of that credit union. Kasi usually naman sa kanila, 'di ba, hindi sila nagbabayad ng cash. Let's say nag-Grab Pay lang sila, ganyan, ginagamit lang nila yung credit card nila, yung debit cards. So doon nakuha yung information that they're from the government. So dahil na po doon, nade-detect, and what Uber did is nagre-release sila ng, let's say, na-detect nila na this person is from the government, magre-release sila ng fake version ng software, and then there goes miniature cars. Yung kumbaga, pag bubukas tayo ng Uber, yung mga kotse na nakikita natin na malapit lang sa atin. So, ganun din naman sila. Pero ang kaibahan dun sa fake software na yun is, ano lang siya, parang pinapaniwala lang niya yung person or that certain official na merong cab na malapit. Pero later on, itatag nila ng canceled yung trip para hindi sila mahuli. Now, since lumabas na tong issue na to, Uber tried to deny na hindi naman yun talaga yung purpose kung bakit nila ginagawa yun, kung bakit nila ginagamit yung software na Grable. But their main goal in using that software is to make sure na kasi there are certain individuals, of course, in the United States na hindi naman nila mapipigilan na, hurt physically their drivers. So, it's a violation of their terms and conditions, terms and services. And their main goal, kung bakit nila ginagamit yung Project Grable, is to make sure that no one can physically hurt their drivers, or yun nga, yung kumbaga yung mga naggagawa ng black propaganda para mapasarado sila or mapatigil yung business nila. Pero after mahuli ng Uber or after magkaroon ng solid evidence na hindi nga sila legally allowed to operate, majority of their cabs were impounded and natikitan sila. So, from what I've read.
So, nalugi pala talaga sila ng isang country.
Yes po. Sobrang laki ng binayad nila para lang makuha yung cabs, tsaka para mabayaran yung violation. So, one of the facts that I've read is kaya nila ginagawa yun kasi syempre hindi sila magiging visible sa radar, ganyan. So, let's say magkaroon ng violation, yung isang driver, hindi siya matitikitan. So, yes. Kumbaga, if we will look into it ethical-wise, ginagawa nila yon to protect their drivers. Pero, it is unethical because they are working illegally. They are working illegally and hindi sila sumusunod sa batas ng city or country that they're in. Wait lang po. So, hindi sila sumusunod sa batas ng bansa na nag-ooperate sila. So, yeah, that's one of the examples nung
Pero ngayon sa Europe nag-operate na yung sa Australia din nag-operate na yung Uber.
Yes po. Allowed na silang mag-operate.
Ano kayang ginawa nila doon?
So, allowed na silang mag-operate kasi they were able to follow naman na yung standards or yung legalities ng countries. So, so that's one of the examples na how business people or how individuals reacted when they need to face or how did they react to certain situations, or how did they react to certain dilemmas.
Oo, kasi unethical yung mga ginagawa nila, tapos after niyan, minsan kasi yung unethical na ginagawa nila parang nagiging okay kasi nga tinatabunan.
Yeah, ganun. Opo. Nagiging, kumbaga, dahil para sa iba, hindi naman siya masyadong mabigat na violation, ganyan, or marami namang nakikinabang, may iba talaga na pinapalagpas na lang. Pero, in a sense, it's still unethical. Okay. So, next is, we have this mindset na kapag sinabi nating ethics, it is correlated to our religion, to our beliefs, and of course, yung sarili nating perspective. Pero according to Marcula, ethics, feelings, religions, hindi sila necessary na correlated. Pero when we say ethics, according to this framework, it is us as individuals na nagre-refrain from doing wrong actions. So, another framework that is quite similar to this is deontology. So, deontology is in English. Yeah, in deontology, in English is duty-based theory. So, deontology is a theory that is usually related to Immanuel Kant. Kasi siya yung isa sa mga proponents ng Kant's theory. So, that's under deontology. So, when we say deontology, Immanuel Kant, personally, or according sa theory niya, us as individuals, may it be gumawa tayo ng mali o gumawa tayo ng tama, nagiging tama pa rin siya or nagiging reasonable pa rin siya by the way we reason out. So, let's say, gumawa tayo ng unethical na gawain, as long as we reason it out, it is considered acceptable. Pero,
kasi parang, ang ethical and unethical is actually based on the discretion of the person na nakatanggap nito, either okay lang sa kanya or magkaroon siya ng violent reaction in that particular sense, diba? So, depende yun sa recipient ng mga pangyayari. Kung wala siyang pakialam, okay lang. Kung galit na galit siya, yung parang ganun.
Ang question po.
Yes po.
Kung ang ethics po, it's not the same as religion and feelings. So, paano po natin siya, saan po siya nagbe-base, yung ethical framework?
Kasi when we say ethical framework, it's how we reason out. Hindi siya based sa religions and feelings, pero more on our beliefs as a person.
So parang, paano yan? Kasi medyo malawak ang scope nun. Kung let's say, for example, ethical sa'yo, pero sa iba, hindi naman ethical. So parang magkakaroon ng confusion doon. So wala talaga siyang parang pinaka-baseline. Ganun.
Yeah, actually, papasok din yung ethical dilemma, which we will actually discuss later. Pero under ethical dilemma, there are certain ethical situations talaga na, kumbaga, people would lead to two options, pero those options are neither ethically acceptable unless ma-reason out siya ng tama. So, there's really no certain, framework, or there's no guidelines paano natin masasabi na ethical or unethical siya.
Kasi 'di ba parang ano din yun parang ang question mo is parang it's about paano mo malalaman yung mali kung wala kang guidelines. So parang nasa ganong
That's why they have the law.
Hindi kasi sabi kasi it's not the same as religion, feelings, following the laws and societal expectations.
Yeah, so may
basically, magiging magiging unethical lang siya if it considered lang siya unethical if hindi tayo sumunod sa batas. Pero if we did not violate the law, pero we still did something, unethical or dirty, pero we were able to reason out and the society accepted it, somehow it is considered ethical. Kahit unethical siya.
Depends on the recipient or the society.
Depende
kung anong
sa
judgment nila.
Yes. Kasi of course, us as individuals, magkakaiba yung paniniwala natin.
Yes.
And, may mga tao naman na, di ba, kunwari tayo, magkakaparehas tayo ng belief, magkakaparehas tayo ng belief, and then, we believe that whatever that someone did is not unethical. Pero for others, it's unethical. So, depende siya sa perception or sa belief ng isang individual.
Okay po. Okay, thank you.
Kaya minsan kasi kapag merong mga issues, like sometimes sa Pinas may mga issues ganun, parang hindi siya tinatanggap sa society, talagang pinag-uusapan. After mga 1 week, 2 weeks, wala na. So ano yun? Accepted na.
Kasi, ang mahirap kasi sa...
kasi parang natatabunan na naman ng ibang issues. So, wala na yun.
Kasi ang dami ring issue. So, although, hindi naman talaga siya nagda-die down, pero like what you've said po, it's issue after issue after issue after issue.
Kaya nga, parang ang lahat nagre-react, buong bansa, buong tapos lahat ng Pilipino, after nga, mga 1 week, parang ilang days wala na, nag-lay down na, after mga 2 weeks na, nakakalimutan na, iba na naman yung pinag-uusapan. Diba?
Yes.
So, parang na-accept din sa society na parang hindi na lang pinapansin kasi iba na naman.
Yes, exactly. Kasi parang, because majority sa Pilipinas somehow accepted that, let's say, that action, wala na rin na magagawa yung iba to agree, but to agree.
Kaya nga, parang palilipasin lang yung
Kasi,
parang trending lang kasi kung ikaw yung trending, pinag-uusapan ka, hindi yan accepted sa society. After yan, wala na.
Oo. Hanggang sa maungkat na lang ulit siya. Ganun. Parang cycle lang siya. Nagiging cycle lang. Okay. So, under deontology or under Kant's theory, he also believed na merong 2 types of duties under his theory. So, the first type of duty is perfect duty. So, when we say perfect duty, there is nothing on the middle. So, let's say, pag sinabi ng society or kapag sinabi sa'yo na bawal kang pumatay, it's either gagawin mo or hindi mo gagawin. Hindi pwede na nasa gitna ka lang. Pero the other type of duty is called imperfect. And imperfect duty is somewhere in the middle ground. Kumbaga, kapag sinabi ng society that you have to learn about the world around you, nagkakaroon ka ng pagkakataon para mag-improve, para i-educate yung sarili mo. And how are you going to perform the duty will depend upon you. Will depend upon your personality or your belief. Now, refraining from wrong actions, possible or can be also possibly na gumagawa lang tayo ng tama kasi yun yung tama. Kumbaga, hindi pwedeng pumatay, hindi pwedeng magnakaw, hindi pwedeng manloko, hindi pwedeng mang-scam, ganyan. Iniiwasan na natin gawin yun kasi yun yung sinasabi sa atin na hindi natin pwedeng gawin. So, we are totally refraining from doing such actions. So, next is human rights or the right to live, right to life, and right to privacy and virtues. So, there are several ethical frameworks that we can easily read on the internet or in the library. Pero for today, we are going to discuss three basic or three most commonly used na frameworks. So the first framework is the Blanchard-Peale framework. So this framework was developed by Ken Blanchard and Norman Vincent Peale. And this is considered as the easiest and the simplest framework kasi itong framework na to is umiikot lang sa tatlong tanong. So the first question is it legal? So kumbaga, under this framework, we make ethical decisions based on these three questions. So first is it legal? So the decision that a person or a business owner or an individual is about to make, he needs to make sure or kailangan niya siguraduhin na yung ginagawa ko is hindi nag-violate sa batas, sa law, or sa company regulations. Second is it fair? So under this framework, tingnan lang po. Okay, so under this question, kung yung decision ba na gagawin ko will be fair para doon sa mga tao na involved or magiging fair sa lahat ng individuals na maapektuhan ng decision ko. Last is,
does it make me feel?
Yeah, how does it make me feel? So how does it make me feel as an individual or basing on your own beliefs, basing on your personality or characteristic? Kapag malaman ng mga tao sa paligid natin yung decision na inilabas natin, paano sila magre-react dun sa decision na yun? Or kasi there are individuals who make decisions based on their intuitions, based on their gut feel. So if ever this decision will, or let's say, itong decision na to, and you had a bad feeling, you had a gut feel, how are you going to react? So according to this framework, somehow, nakaka-reach tayo ng ethical decision just by basing or based on these three questions. So the next framework is the Markula Center framework. So under Markula Center framework, there are 5 approaches. And the first one is utilitarianism. So under utilitarianism, ang focus natin or the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. And ang focus natin is kung ano yung ang ethical decision natin must favor the greater public. So regardless if there are few people who are against there are certain people who are against the decision as long as ang makikinabang nito is yung mas marami.
Mas marami.
Yeah, we have to stick with that ethical decision. So next is the rights approach. So under rights approach, the ethical decision that we are about to make should and must protect our the dignity or the moral rights ng mga tao na maapektuhan. So us as human or us as people, our rights should be important and treated as important as other factors. So I think there is this one questionable issue right now sa Pilipinas that may fall under this frame or under this approach, and that is this vaccine that will come from Russia. There are certain kasi they said na the vaccine was parang minadali siya. Hindi naman sa minadali pero hindi hindi pa tapos yung clinical trial niya. Kasi they said that it will be available by October. Now, let's say, as a public official or as someone who will purchase the vaccine knowing na hindi pa tapos yung clinical trial, how are you going to protect the welfare of your public? So, dun papasok yung dilemma. Dun papasok yung ethical issue under rights approach. So, the next approach is fairness. Yes. Fairness is also called justice approach. And under this approach or under justice approach, it is said na lahat ng ethical decisions should be equal or should be fair sa lahat ng nasasakupan or sa public or sa lahat ng involved dun sa ethical dilemma or sa ethical decision. Now, if on the event na hindi possible na maging patas yung decision na yan para sa lahat, we must think of a way or think of another way kung or think of a different decision na somehow magiging patas para sa lahat. Next is common good approach. So, common good approach was first derived or originated from the writings of Plato, Aristotle, and Cicero. So, under common good approach, ethical decisions must focus on the welfare of everyone, kung saan mapapabuti lahat ng tao. And example of this is accessible and affordable healthcare, just and legal political system, and flourishing economic system. So, under this approach, we cannot expect na we will see outcome or good results overnight, unlike dun sa first three approaches, because since the focus is to promote welfare or better welfare for the people, kailangan din ng cooperation coming from the people, and it will take like years or months before natin makita yung pinaka-outcome niya or yung result niya sa tao natin or sa people. And the last one is virtue approach. So when we say virtue approach, as an individual, paano tayo magde-decide or kung paano tayo mag-react to people, to certain situations, to certain scenarios. Now, there is this question na paano kung magkaroon ako ng decision, what would make me or what that decision would make me as a person. So, nakadepende dito kung ano yung paniniwala natin, kung ano yung personality natin, and our characteristic. So, under Marcula Center of Framework, people or the following steps are the steps that we need to follow in making ethical decisions. So, first is we have to recognize that it really is an issue, or the ethical issue is an issue na importante or that needs to be tackled, that needs to be discussed by the society. Second is we have to get all the facts regarding the issue. Third is we have to evaluate all the alternative actions. So based on the 5 approaches that we've discussed, as for utilitarian, yung alternative na dapat nating i-provide is something that will do good for the greater mass and will result to less harm. So that's the alternative for utilitarian. For rights approach, which alternatives will protect the rights or moral rights or human rights of the stakeholders. For justice, alternative that will treat people more fairly or will be providing alternative decisions na magiging fair para sa lahat. For common good, alternatives that will serve the community or will serve the society. And for virtue, alternatives based based on our own personal beliefs. So those are the alternatives that we need to consider under Marcula Center framework. Now the next step is to make your own decision. So if the decision na that we were able to come up with is something ethical, pero para sa atin or in our own perspective, we are not comfortable dun sa decision na yun, or we are uneasy sa decision that we were able to come up with, possible na bumalik tayo from the first step for us to reconsider other decisions. Now, on the event that we came up with a different decision, we have to weigh kung ano yung mas mabuting decision or yung mas magandang decision para dun sa ethical dilemma or sa ethical problem na yun.
Normally now, yung decisions nila is based on profitability kung saan sila.
It's really
profit saan hindi lugi.
Yeah. Kaya majority talaga ng business owners or ng mga may-ari ng business, naglilin sila sa kung saan kikita, which sometimes naglilid sa sa paggawa ng unethical unethical procedures in the process.
Kaya tinatago-tago na yun. Like yung sa tax, diba?
Medyo hindi naman sa nandadaya, pero okay. So the last framework, the last is act on the decision. So when we say act on the decision, we have to implement, we have to evaluate if yung decision na ginawa natin is effective, or may mga individuals or the people under our company or our business did benefit from the decision. Now, again, if feeling natin the decision that we made is not effective or hindi nag-benefit yung business, yung brand natin and the people na nagtatrabaho para sa brand natin, or us as individuals, yung decision na ginawa natin is not or did not benefit us in any way, we have to go back to step 1, or we have to reevaluate or reassess kung ano ba yung dapat natin gawin for that certain problem. So the last ethical framework that we are going to discuss is the issue contingent model of ethical decision making. So this model was proposed by Thomas M. Jones. So according to him, or feeling ni Thomas M. Jones, the first two frameworks were too simple para makapag-come up ng ethical decisions. Now, under this framework, according to him, it is important to consider moral intensity. Moral intensity. So, when we say moral intensity, this is, as a person, how we weigh the consequences of our action. So if there is higher degree of, or if we have higher degree of moral intensity, mas nagiging rational tayo as individuals, mas nagiging sensitive tayo sa kung ano yung magiging consequence ng action natin, and mas magiging aware tayo sa kung ano man yung existing problem. Kasi it is inevitable or it is unavoidable na as individuals, lalo na kung the situation calls for it, minsan nagiging irrational tayo. So, in that way, hindi natin nako-consider yung moral intensity or mababa yung moral intensity natin. Pero according to this framework, we have to consider moral intensity for us to be rational or for us to weigh the consequences first bago tayo magbigay ng final decision. So, moral intensity considers several components. So, the first is magnitude of consequences, social consensus, probability of effect, temporal immediacy, and concentration of effect. So, when we say magnitude of consequences, anticipating or determining kung gaano kabigat yung impact ng decision na gagawin natin. Or kung gaano kabigat yung magiging outcome ng decision na gagawin natin. So, for social consensus, this is the extent where a collective number of people agree na yung decision or yung act that was made is either good or bad. So, it doesn't matter if, or it's not necessary na it is good or it is bad. Pero, since it was collectively agreed na tama or mali yung isang action, nagiging tama or mali siya. Kasi, kumbaga, majority nag-agree dun sa action na yun. Next is probability of effect. So, sa 5 moral or out of these components, probability of effect is the only component na hindi constant. Kasi ang nakadepende to sa kung ano yung magiging consequence ng action. So, if it created if the society benefited or if it created benefit or if it caused harm, nakadepende yun sa kung ano yung magiging outcome ng decision. So, if by any chance and it created harm or hindi nga nakapag-benefit yung isang individual or yung isang brand dun sa action, we have to change it. That's why this is not constant. Kasi anytime, pwede siya mag-change. Depende sa consequences. So, the next is temporal immediacy. So, this is how we act depending on the consequences as well as yung time na ibinigay sa atin. So, our tendency is kapag nagkaroon ng ethical problem or ethical issue and we were asked to respond to it real time, ang nagiging tendency natin is nakakagawa tayo ng unethical decisions or nagiging irrational tayo. Pero if nabibigyan tayo ng enough time to make decisions para sa ethical issue na yun, mas a-avoid natin yung pagkakaroon ng unethical decisions. Mas nakakapag-isip tayo, mas nakagkakaroon tayo ng ethical solution sa ethical dilemma. So, the last is
concentration.
Meron parang wala. Next is proximity. So, when we say proximity, this will refer sa psychological or emotional closeness ng individual or ng decision maker doon sa maapektuhan ng decision. Possible din na under proximity, makaka-affect din kung yung decision maker is literally close to us or madali lang puntahan compared to someone who is miles away from us. So, proximity also affects ethical decisions. So, the last is concentration effect. And under concentration effect, nakadepende sa ilang number of people yung consequences. So, let's say, it is easier to provide moral action to a single individual compared sa madaming tao. Kasi, of course, if there's a certain, or if this is just an individual, or this is just a certain, or if this is just a single individual, mas madaling mag-convince. Pero if it's, if it's madami, or if madami yung maaapektuhan,
community yung affected.
Yes, there is a possibility na mapabagal yung decision making or yung pagbibigay ng decision kasi of course magkakaroon pa ng conflict yan, magkakaroon pa ng iba't ibang pag-uusap, ideas para makapag-come up sa collective na solution. Now, under this model, there are 4 decisions or 4 steps para makapag-come up sa certain decision. And the first is, of course, we have to recognize the issue. Second is we have to make judgment. Third is we have to establish moral intent. So when we say moral intent, ito yung kagustuhan natin as individuals na gumawa ng tama. So, regardless if we were, or it's not necessary to follow the right choice, or let's say, a community was able to come up with a collective idea. Pero, syempre, let's say, as head of a business or head of the community, nasa sa inyo pa rin yung final decision. And under moral intent, regardless if it is the right choice or not, pero it is the desire of an individual na gusto niyang gumawa ng tama. So, yun yung moral intent. And last is, we have to engage in behavior. So, just like in Mercula, we have to evaluate, we have to implement, and we have to observe kung paano magre-react yung affected community or affected individuals dun sa decision na ginawa natin. Now, at the end of the cycle or after at the end of the steps, we have to make sure that we considered the 5 moral intensity for us to be able to come up with the best decision for that ethical problem. So, the next is ethical dilemma. And ito po yung sinasabi ko kanina, na under ethical dilemma, we are sometimes faced sa decision making, we are sometimes faced or we are sometimes asked to provide 2 solutions, or plan A tsaka plan B. Pero plan A and plan B is not necessarily acceptable in an ethical perspective. So, depende sa reasoning ng decision maker, depende sa reasoning ng nag-provide ng solution, kung paano ma-resolve yung solution. That's why ethical dilemmas are complicated kasi neither of the options that were provided are right and wrong, or right or wrong. So we usually, or of course, we face or we will face ethical dilemmas on a daily basis. So pwedeng sa trabaho, pwedeng sa personal life, and pwedeng sa social life. So depending on how we are going to respond or how are we going to react to these dilemmas is up to us. Okay, so before tayo mag-proceed sa next topic, wait lang po. So before tayo mag-proceed sa next topic, I just want to present a certain case study who nagfa-face siya ng ethical dilemma. And this is quite known in or well taught siya sa ethics subject talaga. And this is quite known in the business world. So this is the ethical dilemma or the case study of Monsanto and the genetically modified organisms. So a little overview or a little background lang po about Monsanto. So Monsanto was first founded in 1901 by John Francis Queeny, and this is a Missouri-based corporation. So Monsanto is the last name of John Francis Queeny's wife, and yun yung ginawa niyang pangalan ng company nila. So when they were first founded or when they were first established, ang ino-offer pa lang nilang product is saccharin. Saccharin, when diluted, is 500 times sweeter than sugar. So ginagamit siyang sugar substitute. And one of the products na gumagamit ng saccharin is Coca-Cola, Coke Zero. That's why they said na instead of
Zero
kasi
sugar.
di ba may mga health conscious na hindi sila umiinom ng Coke, normal Coke, kasi akala nila mataas yung sugar content. Pero because of the sugar substitute that they are using, which is saccharin, mas mataas yung sugar content niya. And some are not really advising to drink Coke Zero. So aside from saccharin, which is the sugar substitute, in 1905, they also started selling caffeine and vanillin. So caffeine and vanillin, these are ingredients or components na ginagamit for aspirin. So, so that was in 1905. And then 1920, they started offering sulfuric acid and basic industrial chemicals. So aside from basic industrial chemicals and sulfuric acid, they also offered some materials or chemicals na ginagamit para sa rubber, para sa kotse, yung gulong ng kotse. So that was in 1920. And then in 1923, they began their first overseas venture. So they started in China since masyadong mabigat kasi nung mga panahong to, wala pa namang kotse, wala pa namang aeroplano, is hindi pa naman ginagamit to transport goods, usually by train or by sea. And of course, sugar, kahit 5 kilo lang yan or 10 kilo, masyadong mabigat sa bagahe. So, what they did, they offered saccharin or yung sugar substitute to China or to an establishment in China, and then nag-start yung import nila. Pero although start sila, kasi Monsanto is the first to offer saccharin, caffeine, and vanillin sa United States. Ang main exporter ng US nun is Germany. I think it's Russia. Yeah, Germany or Russia. Yun yung main exporter nila. And then, nung nagbukas sila, nag-start sila ng business, hindi pa naman masyadong, hindi masyadong nag-boom because of the exporter. Pero nung dumating yung come World War, wherein US had to ban exports coming from Russia, naging main supplier ngayon ng saccharin, caffeine, and vanillin, yung Monsanto. Kaya nag-boom yung business nila bigla. So, after that, in 1950, so although nag-offer pa rin sila ng chemicals or nag-offer pa rin sila ng saccharin, they started to venture with the production of fertilizers because it was during this period wherein they faced their first ethical dilemma or ethical issue. Sila rin yung unang offer or nag-provide ng PCBs sa United States, and PCBs are non-biodegradable. It will take years bago siya matunaw talaga. That's why environmentalists are highly against the usage of PCBs. So, since they faced that issue, or they were under fire for using or offering PCBs sa market, they tried to shift yung ventures nila or yung products nila from chemicals to the production of fertilizers. So, by that time, ang ino-offer pa lang nilang fertilizer is just a simple fertilizer to help the farmers. So, fertilizers. And then, in 1960 to 1970, they faced another issue kasi naging involved sila sa Agent Orange, or they produced Agent Orange. The main goal or their main goal kung bakit nila produce yung Agent Orange is to help the American soldiers or American army na ma-clear out yung jungle sa Vietnam. So this was used in Vietnam and it lasted for 10 years. So that was Vietnam War, and the main goal is parang mag-serve siya as a herbicide or as a fertilizer para to clear out the jungle and makita yung any Viet Cong troops na nagtatago sa jungle. But then unexpectedly or not, kasi this Agent Orange, this contains an extremely toxic chemical, which is dioxin. And ang naging effect ng Agent Orange to the veterans na nasa field and families na nasa vicinity or within the vicinity ng jungle, nagkaroon ng permanent damages, even to unborn child. Monsanto claimed, Monsanto claimed na hindi siya makaka-damage sa tao, ang maapektuhan niya lang is yung halaman lang mismo kasi it's just a fertilizer. Pero ang naging epekto niya is unborn child. Up until this day, meron silang mga hindi complete yung pag-form ng body parts nila. So, they said, yes, may mga bata na hindi nag-form na maigi yung mata, may iba na hindi nag-form maigi yung kamay, and they said that it is still the effect of this chemical, or it's still an effect of Agent Orange. So, that's another issue that they had to face just after shifting their ventures from chemicals to fertilizers. Pero, it did not really stop Monsanto from offering agriculture products. So, in 1976, herbicide Roundup was introduced in the United States. So, herbicide Roundup is still offered up until this day, and it is one of the most well-known and most used among the farmers. Now, ang goal or Monsanto's goal in releasing herbicide or Roundup is to make sure na farmers can plant their crops kahit magkakatabi. Kasi, di ba usually sa farm or sa bukid, kapag nagtanim yung farmers para hindi tubuan ng wild crops in between, kailangan meron niyang space. Pero because of this herbicide or because of Roundup, hindi na kailangang lagyan ng space yung crops. Pwede na nilang matamnan ng magkakatabi para ma-maximize yung buong
production.
Ma-maximize yung production and ma-maximize yung farm mismo. So, they introduced that in 1976, but then hindi pa rin siya masyadong nag-boom by that time because there are issues. I mean, that PCB, this Agent Orange, that was surrounding Monsanto. Pero later on, of course, since the farmers did use it, na-prove naman nila na it was really effective, and the crops na tinanim nila, hindi naman naka-apekto yung Roundup sa production. So, in 1980s, since naban na, it was only during this period, from 1950 to 1980, it was only during this period na naban yung usage ng PCB. That's why from chemical company, nag-shift sila fully to biotechnology. So, in 1990s, they began expanding and started putting artificial chemicals into foods. So, one of the examples is Simplis. Simplis is a fat substitute that can be found in yogurt and cheese. So, aside from saccharin, gumamit din sila ng Simplis, which is an artificial chemical na nilagay nga nila sa pagkain. And then, in 1993, their first genetically modified plant was produced. So, yung unang crop na na-produce nila is tomato. Pero the research and development started from 1980. So, it took them 13 years.
Wow.
Yes. 13 years para makapag-produce sila ng first genetically modified na plant, which is a tomato.
Grabe yung research and development nila.
Yes.
Hindi tayo sumusuko.
And sobrang laki ng pera na nagastos nila.
Oo.
For the
Sa R&D talaga,
Mm-mm.
ang laki talaga ng gastos niya.
Yes. Now, that's one of the issues that they also faced. But before that, in 1996, they first released their first biotech product line. So, biotech product line involves Roundup, the genetically modified tomato, soybeans, and insect-resistant cotton. Now, since the main goal or main purpose rather of Roundup is to avoid crops na tumubo around the plants. Pero there are some instances na along the process or before ma-launch tong biotech na to or yung genetically modified seeds, naapektuhan niya yung pagtubo ng halaman or ng crop. Pero because of this GMO or because of this genetically modified seeds, they made sure na Roundup resistant siya. So when we say Roundup resistant, the herbicide won't cause any harm sa crop itself or hindi mamamatay yung crop doon sa fertilizer or doon sa herbicide na yun. So in 2003, since the launch of this biotech products is naging successful, they began to fully shift to agriculture. So, hindi na sila masyadong nag-offer ng chemical products and they focused on seeds. Now, before tayo mag-proceed sa ethical dilemma nila, I just want to show you their mission and vision. So, the Monsanto's mission and vision is to deliver high-quality products that are beneficial to our customers and to the environment. Through sound and innovative science, thoughtful and effective stewardship, and a commitment to safety and health in everything that they do. Now, although their mission is to deliver high-quality products na beneficial to their customers, their products are actually banned in the United States, in Europe because of the chemicals na nilalagay nila sa product. Now, in United States, kaya medyo, this is another ethical issue that Monsanto faced because in the United States, their products are not labeled by the FDA. So, hindi siya dumaan sa quality check, sa quality assurance, but still, it is being offered sa market.
Paano yan? Hindi ba hinahabol yung ano?
Hindi po. They
Wala ka siguro.
are operating legally. Pero hindi siya...
Pero sila pumapasa eh.
Hindi sila
FDA.
pumapasa pero hindi nilalabelan ng FDA. If it's high quality, if it's toxic. So, kaya yung critics nila or some na who wants to shut down Monsanto dahil na nga rin sa previous issues nila are skeptic kung safe for consumption ba yung products nila. Pero if babalik tayo din sa framework kanina, which is utilitarianism, hindi siya questionable because ang nagbe-benefit from their products is the greater public or the greater mass. Kasi ang nangyari is, because of the Roundup and because of the genetically modified organisms, dumadami yung products na na-harvest or dumadami yung food na na-produce ng farmers. Kaya
siguro,
hindi siya...
belong na rin to sa mga organic products, no?
Po?
Belong na rin to sa mga organic products yung sa kanila, yung mga genetically...
Yes po.
Genetic products.
Yes. Genetic organisms. Okay, so that's their mission and vision. And sa website ng Monsanto, they described that their company is sustainable, empowering, supportive of their most valuable customers, which is the farmers. So, I have mentioned earlier na because their R&D lasted for almost 20 years, masyado malaki yung ginastos nila for yung binudget, yung nilabas nila just for R&D. Now, dito papasok yung main ethical dilemma ng Monsanto. They wanted to provide products kasi lumalaki yung population sa US. They want to release products wherein walang sino man sa US ang magugutom or wala sa Amerika ang magugutom because of scarcity of resources. So they monopolize the food corporation, and when we say monopolized, ang ginawa nila is they patented the seeds. They registered the seeds under their name para whoever wants to plant their crops kailangan bumili sa Monsanto. Kailangan bumili sa kanila. Now, one of those who yung pinaka naapektuhan ng patenting of the seeds is the farmers. Because as of 2017 or 2018, the lawsuits na napanalo ng Monsanto is around 150. That is just the lawsuit against farmers na lumabag din sa patent protection ng seeds nila. So,
Paano naman nila malalaman?
yes. I was
Kasi nga
about
seeds
to...
lang yun tapos tububo na. Uy,
Kasi,
sa amin to.
yes po, kasi ang nangyari is, since this is, the farmers bought the seeds from Monsanto. Under this patent, they are not, kasi usually kapag nag-harvest, may mga punla, di ba? But, yung mga punla na yun, hindi sila allowed i-replant. The farmers are not allowed to replant the seeds. They are also not allowed to share yung harvest, or hindi sila allowed to share the seeds to their co-farmers. Para, syempre, yung farmer, or let's say, dahil madami yung harvest ng farmer A, makikita ng farmer B, maka-curious siya. Gusto niya malaman kung saan bumili or kung saan niya nakuha yung seed na yun. And syempre, bibili din siya sa Monsanto para magkaroon din siya ng maraming harvest or magkaroon din siya ng maraming product. Now, to answer your question, paano nalalaman? Paano nalalaman ng Monsanto kung nagre-replant yung farmer? Ang ginagawa nila, kasi of course, alam nila kung saan yung address ng farm. There are officials from the company who would dress up as, individuals na interested sa product nila. Pero they are spies. Para malaman nila if the farmers are replanting.
Their clients.
Yes. Para malaman nila if these farmers are following the patent protection. Now, there is this one case, kasi syempre, hindi mo naman pwedeng pigilan yung halaman na tumubo sa kalapit na lupa. And there's this one case na nakasuhan siya ng Monsanto just because tumubo yung halaman or lumagpas yung halaman dun sa property niya. And they said that it is a violation of their patent.
Paano yun kung anong tawag doon? May bird na tapos di ba nakita yung seeds na hulog?
Pero actually it was they used that as a defense, pero at the end Monsanto still won the case. Kasi it is, according to their patent protection, hindi siya pwedeng tumubo sa ibang lupa. Regardless if it was caused by nature or whatnot, tumubo pa rin siya sa katabing lupa. And it's, according to them, it's a violation dun sa patent nila.
Parang hindi naman siya, hindi naman siya fair.
Yes, that's why it's one of their it's their main ethical problem. It's their main issue. Kasi let's say in the event na nawala ng resources, syempre hindi naman malaki yung kinikita ng farmers na to. And what if mawala ng resources na pambili yung farmer dun sa crops nila, sa fertilizers nila? Saan yung saan magre-resort yung mga farmers na yun? So there are some instances na nagkakagawa na rin sila ng unethical. Although technically it's not unethical kasi
parang binili na nila yun tapos halimbawa kung i-replant nila ulit, din sa kanila na yun, di ba?
yes.
Hindi yung isang beses lang, di ba? Kasi yung seeds na yun, once binili nila, sa kanila na pag-aari yun.
Yes.
Kung ma-replant man yun, din sa kanila na yun.
Opo. Pero again, hindi ganun nag-isip si Monsanto. Kasi gusto nilang mabawi kung magkano man yung nilabas nila. And I think ang nagastos nila for only R&D is around $20 billion.
Wow.
Yes. So, gagawin talaga nila lahat para mabalik yung pera na nilabas nila.
Oo, kasi nga talaga sa R&D, grabe, sobra talaga ang gastos. May mga kumpanya nga na nagsara na lang dahil sa sobrang laki ng ginastos sa R&D, tapos hindi successful. So ayun, tuluyan na nagsara.
Yeah, yun yung isa rin sa mga
kakilala ko business na ganun. Kasi wala na talaga sila. Maganda sana yung business nila dati. Tapos nag-invest sila ng another product. So ang daming nilabas na pera sa R&D. Hanggang sa hindi na sila nakabawi. Nagsara na talaga sila.
Kasi risk din po yun lalo na yung R&D na yun. Kasi syempre, nagpo-formulate ka pa lang naman din ng products, ganyan. Check mo if it's going to be feasible in the market. And yeah, it's a risk kasi hindi naman sure na mababalik mo agad yung profit. Lalo na kapag sobrang laki ng nagastos. So, doon nag-result yung Monsanto. Although their main goal is to, value their main consumers or their main customers, which is the farmers. Pero para makabawi sila sa pera na inilabas nila, they had to transfer the responsibility dun sa consumer nila, which is the farmers. So,
pero it's unjust.
Yes, it is. Kaya madami talaga pong, lalo na sa US, maraming movements na gustong mapasarado ang Monsanto because of their unethical issues or their unethical procedures. Pero there are some hearsays na hindi sila napapasarado because of connections.
Exactly.
Kasi they are very established sa
kasi
US.
yung ginagawa pa lang nila dyan sa pagpapatent ng seeds na yan, tapos parang hindi mo siya basta-basta magawa kung wala kang mga kapit doon.
Yes. Tsaka yung the way that they win different cases.
Kaya nga.
So, alaki ng, kumbaga, just doon lang sa cases na napanala nila, nabawi na nila yung perang ginastos nila. And up until this day, since they are still offering this genetically modified crops or seeds, diba, kumikita pa rin sila. And it's still patented. So, yeah. Ganun yung ethical issue ng Monsanto. Now, by using the framework that we've tackled earlier, the first framework that we will use to assess the ethical dilemma or ethical issue ng Monsanto is the teleological framework. And for this example is utilitarianism. Again, utilitarianism, ang focus niya is the greater number of people. So, in this case, or in Monsanto's case, dahil lumalaki yung population, there is a bigger possibility na magkaroon ng scarce in terms of the resources, scarcity and resources. And yun yung, according to them, yun yung pinaka-iniingatan nila. So, majority or a greater number of people did benefit from Monsanto's GMO crops and GMO seeds na regardless if they are environmentalists or critics na gusto silang mapasarado, as long as it only caused less harm dun sa individuals na yun, it doesn't matter. So, the main points under utilitarianism is, first, GMOs are resistant to diseases and it can increase crop yields. So, when we say it is resistant to diseases, kahit magkaroon ng pests, magkaroon ng insects, hindi masisira or hindi maapektuhan yung crops because of the Roundup, because of their herbicides. And because of the advancement of technology, then they were able to develop certain seeds or certain crops that are resistant to insects. So, hindi talaga siya pinepeste.
At least, maganda naman.
Yes. Maganda yung, kumbaga, in an ethical view, maganda yung purpose nila, maganda yung goal nila, pero they are doing it in an ethical manner or unethical way. So,
Kasi parang bumabawi din sila.
Kailangan talaga nilang bumawi talaga. And unfortunately, yung naapektuhan is yung farmers. Yes. So, it can also increase crop yields. Siyempre, na ma-maximize yung farm, na ma-maximize yung lupa, and dumadami yung production kada harvest. Second point is GMOs could be bad for our health. So, since there is really no kumbaga, hindi siya dumadaan sa inspection, hindi siya labeled ng FDA, there is a possibility na the chemicals na nadadagdag sa crops na to or sa plants na to are bad for the health. And as of now, or as we speak,
hinahayaan pa rin.
Yes, hinahayaan pa rin. And 80% of the vegetables or crops na binebenta sa USA are GMOs. So,
malaki nga ang kapit niya.
Yes. Mahirap siyang ipasara totally kasi kapag pinasarado yung company, mag-stop yung production. Sino magsasuffer?
Monopolizing.
Magsasuffer yung tao, yung consumers. So that's why even though there are some arguments that GMOs are bad for the health, hindi siya mapasarado because they are trying to avoid scarcity of resources. Next point is GMOs are everywhere. So, people na gumagawa or business companies na gumagawa ng unethical practices, they have this thinking na, let's say, Monsanto have this thinking na kung hindi ako yung nag-start ng GMO or hindi ako nag-start ng biotechnology sa crops, there is a bigger possibility na yung competitor ko gagawin yan. Naunahan ko lang. Diba? Kasi nag-a-advance ang technology and it is very impossible na aside from Monsanto na walang gumagawa ng biotech or walang genetically modified ng crops. Sadyang nauna lang talaga yung Monsanto. Kaya, kumbaga yan.
Mahirap ng banggain kasi nga sobrang laki na nila.
And
Pero enterprise naman sa USA, pero siguro wala pa rin talagang nakakapagano.
Yes, there are several movements actually po para ipasarado siya and there are several legal battles. Pero wala talagang makapagpasarado sa Monsanto. So the next is GMOs could be created to decrease disease in humans. So yeah. Because of the effect nakakapag-provide sila ng
biotic products kaya yan.
Yes. And majority rin ng mga, let's say, yung pinapakain sa mga hayop or sa agriculture nila is genetically modified crops na din. So, whether or not it will cause disease or hindi siya harmful sa health ng tao, no one can really prove because hindi siya nag-undergo sa FDA. Hindi siya na-inspect ng FDA. So, last point is the world population is growing, hence there are more mouths to feed. So, ito yung magandang parang advocacy nila na hindi nga pwedeng masyadong, madami yung population sa US. Kaya, there is a possibility na magkaroon ng scarcity and resources, may magugutom. So, through the help of GMO, through the help of Roundup, through the help of their biotechnology, or through the help of biotechnology, nagkakaroon ng mass production every harvest. So, dumadami yung products na na-offer nila sa market. So, the next framework that we used is the ontological framework or Kant's ethics. So, under this ethics or under this framework, of course, is we have to follow or we cannot, we have to do what is right. Not based on the consequences, pero kung ano yung sa tingin natin, tama. And the first point under this framework is, ito rin yung pinapaglaban ng mga environmentalists or their critics, na because of this genetically modified organisms or because of the biotech, nag-i-intervene siya sa nature. So, according to this, the first point is we don't have and we never had the right to tamper with natural plants. Kasi parang nag-i-intervene siya sa kung ano ba yung nangyayari naturally because of science. Next point is we are feeding people and preventing them from starvation. So, pwede itong pumasok sa ethical dilemma. The ethical problem is people or individual, or because of the growing population, we are now left with two options. The first option is either magpa-purchase ng seeds from Monsanto para magkaroon ng mass production, or close Monsanto down and then we will follow the natural process. Now, either of those options are neither considered ethical, pero people would usually tend to choose the first option, which is, to continue the operation of Monsanto para nga hindi
scarcity.
Para hindi magutom yung tao. Kasi that is the only way na nakikita nila para magkaroon ng mass production.
Yung natural tapos na peste, wala na. Tumataas na yung presyo. Diba?
Yes,
agawan na ng supplies.
Yes. Tsaka, lalo na kapag na peste or limited lang yung crops, yung harvest.
Pag limited na lang, wala na. Tumataas na yung prices.
Tsaka may iba na umaasa sa export, ganyan. Minsan, mahal din naman ng benta nila sa US ng mga export products. Kahit gano'n nila kamura na bili sa outside US. So, the last point under this framework or under the ontological framework is if everyone is okay with GMOs. So, since majority, wala namang problema sa GMO, wala naman silang problema sa genetically modified crops or genetically modified organisms, since majority is fine with it, okay na rin para sa iba. So, somehow, in the middle of the process, unethical siya, pero since people are benefiting from the GMO or from this process, nagiging ethical siya in a way. So again, it will really depend on the reasoning or kung paano siya tatanggapin ng greater mass. Okay, so before tayo mag-proceed sa next topic, mag-break muna tayo ng 15 minutes. Okay? So after 15 minutes, we'll resume with our discussion. Okay. So our next topic is about CSR, corporate social responsibility. So, when we say social responsibility, ito yung process where businesses or companies had to balance the 3 Ps. So, when we say 3 Ps, people, planet, and profit. So, kung papaano sila makakapagbenta ng product to the consumers while saving or at least not hindi dumadagdag sa pollution or not harming Mother Earth in any way, and gaining profit from their products. So, usually, the most common CSR na ginagawa ng companies or ng businesses is that plastic-less. Like Carrefour, Lulu, ano pa? Yeah. So, those companies or those supermarkets prior to the pandemic, nagpa-promote sila ng eco bags kasi right now, eco bags
Sa
are...
Pinas din may eco bags na rin.
Pero, kasi I think before pa, no? That, I think around 2014, 15, when it was first introduced sa Philippines, yung dapat lahat, kahit sa ultimong palengke, paper bag yung gamit for the...
Tapos lang nahulog na yung mga gulay. Nabasa sa ulan.
yun yung kumbaga yung pinaka-hassle sa paggamit ng paper bags. Yung mababasa ng tubig, tapos hindi mo
Kasi
malayan.
Sa Pinas, anytime bigla na lang
uulan.
Tapos bigla na lang uulan. Yung wala na, nawasak na yung dalawa.
Tapos hindi nyo mamalayan, wala na yung pinamili.
Oo.
So, yun.
Butas na pala yun.
Butas na.
Bag.
Pero yun, pinromote lang yung usage ng eco bags prior to the pandemic kasi nga, syempre, ngayon, hindi na masyadong promoted yung pag-gamit ng pandemic because of the bags or because of the eco bags. Pero, kasi tayo, as individuals, malaman lang natin na this brand is cruelty-free or yun nga, nagpo-promote siya ng environmental friendly yung pinopromote niya or nagsusunod sila sa standards ng environment. Mas, ang tendency kasi natin is mas lalo tayo nagpa-purchase sa kanila. That's why certain companies really go for cruelty-free products or yung recyclable products nga. I just don't know if it's the same in Dubai or in UAE. Pero kasi dito sa Qatar, there's this grocery, Almira. Sa Almira, meron siyang machine wherein pwede ka mag-collect ng plastic bottles, kunwari water bottles, oil.
Meron na rin yan dito. Oo.
Yung
plastic bottles, tapos ihuhulog mo lang doon, bibigyan ka nila ng tickets,
points.
Tapos parang raffle entry na yun eh. Pwede kang manalo ng iPad, ano mga gadgets.
Maganda siyang CSR.
Sorry, Ion, saan sa Dubai? I was actually looking for
Meron
that.
daw sa sa
Dubai Mall.
Marina Mall. Yung friend ko dati sa
Marina
Marina Mall,
Mall.
lagi siyang dinadala
Marina
niya
Mall,
yung
Abu Dhabi?
Dubai.
Okay.
Talaga. Thank you.
Tapos, yung dito po, instead na raffle entry, siya, points na pwedeng magamit sa grocery. Kaya, win-win situation siya.
Oo, maganda. Ganun din sa sa Europe, sa Germany, ganun. Lahat ng mga tapos sa grocery points siya.
Diba? Para ma-encourage din yung consumers na mag-recycle ng products. So, that's just one of their ways to balance 3Ps kasi nakakaengganyo sila ng consumers na bumili sa kanila while trying to at least help save the environment and gaining profit from it. So that's just one of their effective CSR strategies. So next is stakeholders.
Paano yung mga binibenta na from China na plastic rice?
Plastic rice, plastic vegetables.
Oh.
Grabe.
Plastic fish. Meron daw din yun sa USA plastic fish. Tapos ano pa yun, yung vermicelli plastic daw din yun. Ano ba talaga?
Kaya under fire talaga yung China sa kahit anong bagay. Kasi yung
dapat pala tuturo tayo ng ethics.
Nako. Kasi syempre, lahat gagawin, 'di ba, para kumita. Which is really one of the reasons why yung mga business owners or there are some individuals na dahil willing ng kumita kahit anong gawin, nagre-result sa paggawa ng unethical procedures or unethical ways.
Pero napakaano naman nila na pati yun, nagaya nila. Yung mga plastic rice, plastic na mga pagkain, di ba?
Actually, ang alam ko, ginagamit talaga siya, pero for decoration purposes lang.
Oo.
Pero kasi, ang sa kanila, hinahalo nila. I think sa Pilipinas may ganun din eh. Yung hahaluan ng plastic yung pagkain or yung isda. Parang meron siyang wax or film na kapag hindi mo siya hinugasang maigi or hindi mo siya pinakuluan, makokonsume siya ng tao.
Hala?
Hindi ko alam kung saang lugar.
Yung mga apples, yung mga apples dito, napansin namin ganun. May wax siya.
Yung parang yung candle na film?
Oo, candle na film. So, dahil pinapakain sa bata, so kailangan siyang tanggalin yung balat.
Talaga?
I-try nyo i-check yung mga red apples.
Dubai ka ba, March, di ba?
Dubai. Kaya siya makintab.
Kaya nga, sabi nila mas maganda daw bumili ng apple na mukhang bugbog sarado.
Organic kasi yon pag yung mukhang na siya.
Mukhang lamog.
Talaga.
Advice lang, yeah.
Siguro yung yung apple na parang, nakikita ko yung dark, parang maroon na siya. Kasi
tapos
nakikita ko
makintab siya, basta makintab siya kahit hugasan mo. Tapos medyo malagkit. So may wax siya.
Kasi para siguro isa yun sa ways nila para ma-preserve.
To preserve.
Lalo pat tinatransport.
And then more on presentation kasi siya.
Para appetizing.
Nakakaakit eh. Yan talaga eh. To attract the eyes.
Kung ano yung gagawin ng businesses para, di ba, kumita. But then, all of those are
at the expense of the
unethical.
health of the people.
At the expense of other people talaga. Hindi nila kino-consider kung ano yung magiging effect sa consumers. Basta, mag-gain sila ng profit from it.
Pero for sure, sila mismo hindi yan kumakain sa binibenta nila.
For sure. Panigurado po. Oo, hindi sila kumakain sa ganyan. Or hindi nila kino-consume. Yeah. So anyways, next is shareholder versus stakeholder. So when we say shareholder, these are the individuals, na nakakabili ng stocks or shares sa company. Pero when we say stakeholders, ito yung any individual, na nagpapakita ng interest sa business or nagpapakita ng interest sa company. So, pwedeng employees, consumers, owners, or government.
Neighbors mo.
Yes.
Kasi yung mga toxic mga waste mo, saan mo tinatapon? Bakit dyan lang din?
Yes. Basta anyone na naapektuhan or nagpapakita ng interest din sa product or din sa brand. Now, everyone, of course, can be or are considered stakeholders, pero hindi lahat pwedeng maging shareholder. So, next is the stakeholder theory. So, when we say stakeholder theory, this is a theory na kaya naging successful ang business kasi they treat each customers, each suppliers, each employees, communities, and shareholders equal. Kumbaga, yung value nila is equal lang, kaya bumabalik yung profit sa kanila kasi they are treated equally. So, it is, that is just a theory or an idea na, kumbaga, one of the strategies para maging successful yung business. So, next is stakeholder mapping. So, stakeholder mapping is a process para malaman ng, let's say, ng project managers or ng owners ng businesses na etong individuals na to or interest groups or certain employees maapektuhan directly ng project. So, again, anyone who is going to be affected ng outcome or who will take interest or who will have an interest sa outcome ng project should be considered or should be acknowledged or recognized. So, we were able, or once we were able to identify kung sino yung mga maapektuhan or yung mga possible na magkaroon ng interest sa product natin, and then we are going to map it depending on the level of their interest. So, there are two levels of interest or levels of stakeholders according to stakeholder mapping. And the first is level of interest. So, when we say level of interest, these are the stakeholders na kahit anong gawin nila, let's say, ayaw nila dun sa product, gusto nila sa product, may gusto silang baguhin sa product, the least that they can do is to leave a feedback. Pero, it doesn't mean na yung feedback na yun will be considered or will be a way para magkaroon ng change dun sa project or para magkaroon ng pagbabago dun sa product. So, they have no power to make changes or modification doon sa product. Pero level of influence, these are the stakeholders na have the power to make adjustments, to make changes, and to make necessary modifications regarding dun sa product. So, pwedeng yung government, local officials, and all that. So, that's under level of interest. So, this is an example of stakeholder mapping. So, if by levels, or if we will refer to level of interest and level of influence, usually level of interest is starting from the individual to the organizations, peers, departments, and teams. So, unless involved yung department na yun or yung employee na yun sa project mismo, they have no right to modify the project. They can only provide their feedbacks, ideas, give ideas, pero hindi siya necessary na makakaapekto sa progress or sa project itself. Pero, customers, competitors, shareholders, suppliers, the government, they can be classified or they may be classified under level of influence. Kasi anything that sabihin nila or any changes that will happen external or outside the organization will possibly make some changes dun sa project or sa internal factor or sa internal organization. So this is an example of stakeholder mapping. So this is assessing obligations. So now we were able to determine kung ano yung sino-sino yung stakeholders, sino-sino yung maapektuhan, or sino-sino yung magkakaroon ng interest. We have to assess the obligations. So this is an example of the effect ng movement of production to a lower cost country. So an example is whenever American-based products outsource to other countries. Usually, ginagawa nila to sa BPOs, call centers, or usually ginagawa nila to because they want to find a country na malaki yung manpower pero hindi kasing laki yung binabayad na salary sa mga nasa let's say sa nasa US. So examples are India and Philippines. Malaki yung manpower, malaki yung workforce, pero hindi same rate sa US. Kaya nakakatipid yung companies. So, ang direct positive effect nito sa lilipatan na country is, of course, job opportunities.
Job opportunities, yes.
Lalo na sa BPO or sa call center na hindi naman, sa Pilipinas, na hindi naman necessary na college graduate. High school graduate pwedeng mag-apply. So, bumababa yung unemployed.
Qualifications.
Yes. Bumababa yung, hindi naman bumababa yung qualifications, pero
kasi dati parang yung ano lang talaga yan, yung English, like siguro dati before is like English teachers or yung may customer service, ganun lang talaga yan. Pero ngayon parang pwede na kahit college level, your high school graduate, kasi dati all dapat college graduates.
Yes,
ngayon
actually,
sa dami na ng requirements.
Opo, hanggang ngayon naman po, may mga centers na hindi sila nag-hire ng walang college unit. Pero there is this, there's this mindset na lahat ng nagka-call center magagaling mag-English.
Oo, lahat natuturuan, which is mas okay talaga kasi mas marami silang nabibigyan ng opportunities.
Lalo na yung mga students, kasi nung nag-work po ako sa call center, majority ng kaklase ko, na majority ng katrabaho, students. So, hindi naman sa hindi sila masupport ng family, pero they work para masuportahan nila yung sarili nila. So, majority
pero malaki talaga sahod, di ba?
Depende po sa account. Depende sa bigay.
Pero normally, napakaraming sa ilan yung mga employees, mga thousands, di ba?
Yes. Kasi dun po sa pinag-workan ko, 80,000 kami sa isang building.
80,000?
Yes.
Dami.
Madami talaga siya nabibigyan ng trabaho. Kaya ngayon
pero
na...
isang buong building kayo lang yung nag-occupy.
Opo. Kami lang. Parang part siya ng... Extension siya ng SM, pero hindi siya sa loob ng SM. So, madami talaga
ang clients niyo USA?
US-based. Yes po. So, madami talaga siya nabibigyan ng trabaho. Pero, ngayong pandemic, syempre, lalo pat malaki din na naging epekto sa US, nag-lay off din sila. Nagtanggalan.
Magkano ilang percentage lang natira? 50% na lang?
Depende. Siguro mga 20% lang yung tinanggal. Not lang. 20% yung natanggal. And there are, actually pwede siya maging ethical issue. Kasi, I'm not gonna mention that, kasi iyak to. Yung pinagtrabahuhan ko, kasi di ba, nagkaroon ng ECQ, GCQ, MECQ. GCQ, hindi pwedeng mag-travel ng walang travel pass.
Yeah.
Most especially kasi sa Cavite po ako, madaming cities kasi sa Dasmariñas yun eh. So, let's say, magagaling ako ng 13 ng Naik ng Tansa, madami akong cities na kailangan lagpasan bago ako makapunta ng Dasma. Now, from what I heard, from what I saw, kahit nasa GCQ na, they are still forcing people to work, to come into work. So, kumbaga, there is an option kasi syempre before pa nagtaasan yung cases sa Pilipinas, there are companies na nag-start na silang mag-work from home.
Work at home.
Work at home. Pero that company, they're still, forcing people to come into work. Which is, diba, resulting to people talaga. Kasi syempre, nangangailangan yung empleyado. Papasok at papasok
papasok
yan.
talaga. Tapos yun, doon na diba, na contaminated na yung iba.
Yes. Actually, doon nag-start talaga yung, kumbaga, syempre, nasa closed spaced area ka, tapos, may aircon,
Isipin mo
diba?
na isang place lang 80,000. Kung meron diyang isa na halo. Nako.
So, that's, hindi lang naman yung company na yun ang gumawa nun. Pero there are also some companies na in the middle of the pandemic, you would understand. Kasi, syempre, walang pumapasok na profit. You have no other choice but to terminate people. Pero if you're going to force employees to come into work and threaten them that you are going to terminate them, diba? Na just because they chose na maging safe, not only them but their family, I think it's part of an ethical issue sa Philippine companies.
Oo.
So, yeah. Nag-open siya ng bagong ng job opportunities to unemployed citizens. But at the same time, kung sino man yung mga employees na nasa United States, syempre, mawawalan sila ng trabaho. Lalo na kapag hindi pa sila regular sa trabaho.
Oo. Ayun talaga.
Yes. Kung merong nagkaroon, may mawawalan, of course. Pero that's just one of their way para makatipid.
Survive.
Oo,
survive in the market also.
Yes, so lalo pat
kaysa naman sa magsara.
Mabilis kasi, 'di ba? Sobrang bilis ng turnover sa business. Kaya lahat
kasi kapag i-outsource nila 'yon, siguro makatipid sila ng mga 50% or even more.
Sa US,
French benefits pa lang sa USA ang laki niya.
I think sa US is $8 per hour. Pero sa Philippines, so $8 na sa
$2.
$2 po ba per hour?
Yung kasi yung iba. Hindi ko alam.
Kasi parang 4 or 5, which is nasa 250. Pero yung rate namin nun is nasa 60 pesos lang kada oras.
60 pesos. So that means 1 point something lang. 1.2.
Sobrang laki na natitipid nila.
Oo, hindi nga talaga siya umabot ng ng $2. Sa paano.
Pero ang downside kasi nun is, lalo na sa BPO, hindi maiiwasan na yung client mo or yung customer mo, ang hanapin is someone na nasa United States. So, that's why, if you've heard some stories about, racism or discrimination stories sa BPOs, it's true. Naranasan ko siya firsthand.
Talaga?
Yes, same for us din, ma'am.
So, ma'am, that could be one of the reasons why from the beginning that you will apply to a BPO industry, they start to give trainings dun sa mga new hires nila to yung accent ng country na yun. They're trying to adopt it, right?
Yes,
actually, I just heard from
Opo.
from some relatives, there is a training to adopt yung accent, or they're starting to get the training.
Actually, nung nag-work ako, kasi nung nag-stay ako sa company na yun for 3 years. So, nung nag-work ako, start ako mag-work, dalawa yung klase ng training namin. First training is voice and accent training. Hindi naman necessary na magkaroon ka ng American accent. Pero sabi nila, ang kailangan naming makuha is accent of Ellen DeGeneres or ni Ofra. So, yun yung training for voice and accent. And then, iba pa yung product. Pero, syempre kasi, hindi naman lahat, di ba, mabilis matuto. Lalo pat, I think 3 weeks lang yung voice and accent namin nun. Hindi lahat mabilis matuto. So, kapag sinasabak na sa production, iba pa rin yung accent. Filipino accent pa rin. So, yeah. Doon nag-start talaga yung... Pero I think, yung isa sa mga mahihirap na na-experience ko nun is yung kapwa ko Pinoy. Yun ang discriminate sa akin.
Yung Pinoy na nasa USA.
Yes. Actually, naranasan ko yun.
Pinagalog mo na lang yun. Hoy.
Hindi po pwede. Kung pwede lang eh. Naranasan ko yun kasi gaya nga na lagi kong kinukwento rin sa ibang students. It's okay sa akin na murahin mo ako ng English. Pero the moment na minura ako ng Tagalog, hindi ako nakapagsalita. Kasi iba yung feeling. Kasi, syempre, isipin mo, di ba? Same, parehas kayo ng nationality, syempre, dapat kayo nagkakaintindihan. Pero ganun talaga siguro kapag, di ba, nandun na.
Americanized.
Yes. So, may mga
ma-share ko lang din, ma'am. Ay, sorry.
Sige po. Sige po.
Kasi, I have, masasabi ko yung medical coding kasi is actually, kung sa Pinas, outsourced din siya, usually from the US. So, for us, we're not dealing with voiced account, but more of backside support. But then, sobra rin yung discrimination nila kahit on that part. Because, siguro naiintindihan din naman natin kasi nga, lalo na at this point, na sobrang apektado ang US, lalo ng economy nila and all. Tapos, for companies to survive sa US, ang talagang nagiging option nila kahit nasa alam mo yun kasi as of now, dagdag na yung pandemic tapos yung management ni Trump. So, medyo pinipilit, di ba, ini-encourage talaga ni Trump na wag i-entertain yung idea ng pag-outsource ng trabaho kasi maraming American yung nawawalan ng trabaho. Well, on that part, naiintindihan naman natin sila. Pero, syempre, hindi rin naman kasalanan ng mga companies sa US na gusto din nila mag-survive. So, that's why they are opting out to offshore their part ng business nila. So, yun nga. Kaya lang kasi, like, for example, for in our case, dun sa line of business namin, kahit na hindi, parang sobrang dinidiscriminate nila yung mga trabahong pinapadala sa India or sa Philippines kasi nandoon yung most concentration ng mga coders. Dinidiscriminate nila just so, parang bakit nyo kailangan ipadala sa mga bansang to yung mga trabaho, hindi naman doon sila maayos magtrabaho. I don't know from where they're getting that, but kumbaga, qualification-wise, feeling lang nila, masyado silang entitled because they're American. So, yung trabaho para sa Amerika, dapat sa kanila napupunta. Na-share ko lang.
Hindi kasi may nakausap din ako nun, sabi niya, I am from America. I demand to speak to someone who is in America.
Oh, yeah. Totoo yan. Ganyan yan nga sila.
Grabe. Tsaka
But nakaka-agree din ma'am yung tungkol doon sa mga Pilipino kasi once, may part kasi na trabaho namin minsan that we have to call yung mga insurance companies na naka-base sa US for clarification or for follow-up. As alam mo na Pilipino yung kausap mo, pero alam mo yun yung parang basta, mas iba yung pakiramdam pag alam mo yung Pilipino yung kausap mo, pero parang siya pa yung mas hindi ko ma-explain.
Tsaka actually, sabi nila, kahit dito sa Middle East, mas madaling kausap yung ibang lahi. kesa sa hindi ko ba alam kung
Totoo.
bakit.
Kaysa sa Pinoy.
Mas madali daw talaga kausap. Pero
Ang mga
yun,
Pilipino galit sa racist, pero in a way, we're more racist.
yes. Diba? Galit tayo sa kung ano yung ginagawa natin.
Correct.
Yes. Kakaiba, char. So, yun nga. Because of outsourcing, maraming nawawalan ng trabaho sa local home or sa local country or sa origin country. Pero I think the downside of this or the disadvantage of this is nakatipid nga sila sa pinapamasahe, sa pinapambayad sa employees, but the plane ticket is very expensive. Kasi, of course, lalo na sa sa BPOs, ang evaluation kasi niya ng employees is every 3 months, quarterly. So, every 3 months, babiyahe sila from US to Philippines para ma-evaluate yung employees, which I think is more expensive since management will have to travel more. So,
Gusto rin nila yun. Kasi nakapag-travel sila.
travel. So, yeah, those are the disadvantage, or that is the disadvantage ng lower cost or ng pag-outsource. So, the next is stakeholder strategies. So, there are 3 stakeholder strategies, and the first is immoral business. So, when we say immoral business, ang involved dito is the mafia, sex industry, gambling industry, tobacco, and drinks industry. Pero sa 4 na yun, sa 5 yun, ang socially acceptable lang is the tobacco, gambling, and drinks industry. Kasi those 3, before sila mag-operate sa, let's say, sa isang bansa, nag-obtain sila ng license. And there is no way for the government to take that business down unless samahan nila ng ibang gawain or samahan nila ng ibang business. Nag-obtain sila ng gambling license pero may idadagdag sila na ibang gawain which is not sakop din sa the license na inobtain nila. So that is the only ground for the law enforcement or for the government para mawala yung license. Pero otherwise, gambling, tobacco, drinks are considered immoral, pero they are allowed to operate.
Bakit inaalaw?
Kasi may license.
Oo nga tapos ilalagay nila sa cigarette mismo na nakakamatay daw.
I think that's the irony nung marketing strategy nila. Maglalagay sila ng, 'di ba, yung pictures na kung ano yung pangyayari sa'yo kapag nagsigarilyo ka and all that. Pero hindi naman maiiwasan yung taong bumili kasi labas sila na labas ng product. So, it is still considered legal kasi nakakapag-obtain pa rin sila ng license. So, the next is a moral business. So, when we say a moral business, wala silang ibang iniisip. Hindi nila iniisip kung ano yung iisipin ng society sa nature ng business nila. Pero ang mahalaga lang sa kanila is makapag-obtain sila or ang pinakamahalaga lang sa kanila is masunod nila yung rules legal-wise. So, anyone na merong say sa business nila, they don't care unless magi-intervene ang government or ang batas sa business nila. So, usually a moral business are either immoral or moral. So, nasa gitna lang siya. And
ano mga example na mga business na yun?
For a moral business, sige po.
Nightclub?
Nightclub! Pwede. Pwede. Kasi meron silang permits to operate and, di ba, yung nature ng business nila is kind of immoral. Pero it's still moral kasi sumusunod pa rin sila sa batas. They're still ethical. So, and the last is moral, which are businesses who are ethical, fair, and just. Okay, so the last topic that we are about to discuss is whistleblowers. So, when we say whistleblowers, these are certain individuals na nag-expose ng secretive information. So, whistleblowers, hindi lang siya yung kunwari, let's say, okay, so the best example is, kasi may dalawang example na naiisip. And the first is the NTE, yung NTE deal, yung kay Jun Lazada.
ZTE.
ZTE deal, yung kay Jun Lazada, wherein he exposed yung under the table na transaction. So that's an example of whistleblower. Now,
wala na rin yun, di ba?
Yes.
Natabunan na rin yun.
Na-re-elect na nga yung na-re-elect na nga yung involved
Congressman.
Congresswoman na nga Diba? That's, yun yung rin sa Pilipinas, diba? Despite the fact na alam natin that these individuals or these politicians, naging involved sila sa unethical deals. I mean, for example, Bong Revilla, diba? Nakulong. But still, na-re-elect.
Sumayaw lang ng budots.
So,
ayun, nanalo.
Feeling ko majority ng Filipino walang TV Hindi updated.
Walang TV pero may cellphone, may Facebook. Ayan.
Wait lang. Either that or either walang TV or dahil artista, di ba? So,
sobrang nakakalimutin ng Pinoy sa mga pangyayari. Sobrang mapagpatawan.
Malaki rin talaga ang factor ng media, ng mga, yun nga, popularity, ganyan.
Sobra.
Kasi minsan yung iba, kahit kahit yun nga, tulad nga, may mga record na nagagawa silang kapalpakan, sige pa rin. Parang yun nga, nakakalimutan nga, tama. Nakakalimutan may issue. Naalala lang nila kapag naungkat ulit.
Yes, exactly. Diba? That's why, yeah, sorry, sad to say, pero, we never learn. Diba? So, yeah, that's one of the examples. And then,
kasi sa Pinas parang trending lang lagi. Kung ano yung trending. Like, ikaw yun yung uso for like 1 week, 2 weeks, iba na naman. Nakakalimutan.
Buti nga po sana kung 1 week or 2 weeks lang, minsan araw lang pagitan
Oo, minsan araw lang. 3 days maximum.
Yes, and then another whistleblowing, yung pinakamainit, na hindi na rin pinag-usapan, the PhilHealth scandal.
Wala na, tapos na.
Hindi siya tapos na, pero hindi, natabunan na ng bagong issue.
Ay, talaga.
So,
wala ng PhilHealth daw in 2022.
Yeah, aside from that, yung corruption within the organization. Na they said,
hindi pa nila na-break.
Opo, parang sabi nila, I think panahon pa ni Ontiveros.
Yes. Actually, before pa Ontiveros, I think. Pero, kaya nga na-issue Ontiveros dyan
Yung nga po. Tapos bigla na lang lumabas ulit kasi may lumabas na higher official ng PhilHealth
Kaya pala OFW yung pagbabayarin nila ng ilang percent yan? 3% ba yan sa
3%.
sahod
3%,
natin
yes.
para
3%.
makabawi sila doon sa...
Yes.
Alam na nila yan before na wala ng PhilHealth 2022 kasi wala na silang pondo. Para makabawi sila, OFW yung pinagbayad. Grabe, hindi nga tayo naka-benefit niyan. Tapos tayo bang pagbayarin?
Yes.
I think ang nangyari dyan, aside sa mismanagement, is yun nga, corruption.
Corruption talaga.
Kaya nga, sobrang kuha ko.
Tapos yung ngayon pa, yung regarding sa, may recent issue sa PhilHealth, yung hindi sila nag-follow ng coding guidelines. Kaya sobrang ang daming declared cases.
Ayun.
Kasi
Yes.
for standardized, may guidelines, international guidelines na sinusunod for reporting ng COVID cases. And it seems like yung PhilHealth, they didn't follow that. So kahit na suspected yung patient or may positive exposure lang, they coded as COVID. Tapos ang nangyari, parang after 14 days, automatic na cleared na yung patient daw for COVID kahit na wala silang testing na ginawa. So yung management of data for reporting ng really for coding purposes is not followed. Kaya sobrang kahit yung numbers of cases that we have right now is hindi talaga siya totoo. Hindi na-capture ng tama.
I think yun yung mass recovery, tama ba? Yung asymptomatic, hindi nila sinasama sa positive.
Oo. May coding guidelines kasi na pina-follow pag nag-report ng COVID cases. Hindi nila sinunod yun. That's why yung number ng mga cases na meron tayo now na reported ng DOH is not hindi reliable kumbaga na numbers talaga.
May nagre-resurrect pa nga eh.
Kalorky.
Naalala ko yun, yung binalita, yung sa Bilibid. Sabi, patay na daw.
Reported na patay, biglang nabuhay
Kinremate na,
si
biglang
Kuya.
hindi pala. Grabe. Ang hirap kasi.
Kaya nga, I think dapat talaga yung national ID para matrack eh.
Yes, just like how they are monitoring here sa UAE.
Yes.
Napaka-streamline. Kasi lahat ng process na ginagawa nila dito naka-tied up sa Emirates ID mo. So, madali kang ma-identify.
Ang daming tutol sa national ID. Marami kasing corrupt.
Actually po, ang alam ko sa national ID, nag-masters pa lang ako, approve na siya. Ngayon, ang problema kasi sa national ID, sobrang laki ng gagastusin. So, wala daw budget for that. Daw.
So, pero may budget sila
Babawasan kasi yung nila, kukulitin.
Of course, bakit hindi nila gamitin yung mga existing resources? Like, ako meron akong ID ng UMID. Yun yung parang pinaka-ID ko sa Pilipinas aside from passport eh. So, bakit hindi na lang kaya nila gamitin yun, no? Para hindi mag-start from scratch.
Yeah, kasi ang gusto nila mag-register ulit.
At para at least yung mga may UMID ID, hindi na kailangan mag-register.
Marami naman pwede kuhanan ng records eh. Pwede kang kumuha sa SSS, pwede kang kumuha sa... Maraming possible. Kaya lang talaga, yung implementation ng problema mo dyan, tsaka yung nag-handle.
Yes. Even that PhilHealth, kasi I think 2 years ago ata yun. Yung kumbaga parang dito sa Middle East na lahat merong health cards. 'Di ba? Approved na rin yung PhilHealth na yun. Hindi rin siya na-implement because lack of funds daw. So,
nanakaw.
Yeah, pero kasi the thing with these budgets, I mean government budgets, nagsi-zero budget sila. So, kung ano man yung budget for the next year, back to zero talaga sila. Kaya I mean isa yun sa mga natutunan ko sa grad school. Yung kung mapapansin nyo daw, every December, lalo na sa Pilipinas, bilang may masisirang kalsada, Dahil daw
Sisirain ulit.
may spare fund sila because ayaw nilang ibalik yung spare fund, gagastusin nila. Kasi 'di ba nawala na yung pork
So, tapos
barrel.
may aayusin na kalsada na 10 million, ang budget is 20 million. Ganun.
Kaya sabi nun sa amin, kung mapapansin nyo, lagi siyang by the end of the year. Kasi
Oo, parang napapansin ko nga kasi mostly every December umuwi ako sa Pinas, laging may sirang kalsada. Yun pala yun.
Meron nga po yan sa amin, yung malapit sa college, sa university na pinag-aralan ko. Nag-start ako mag-aral 2011. Ginagawa na yon. Gumraduate na ako ng grad school lahat-lahat 2018. Ginagawa pa rin yun. Hindi na siya nagawa. Ganun siya kagabi.
Oo, tapos iwanan nila pati yung mga bulldozer, nandun lang, nakatiwang mo.
Nakatenga lang lahat.
Oo, tapos ang sikip-sikip na, ang traffic na dahil yung kalsada ginagawa, pa rin tapos ilang taon na. Ayan. Tapos, to think yung kalsada na yun, okay yun ha, sinisira lang nila. Tapos, iwanan nakatiwangwang.
Tsaka dahil sobrang tagal na nung construction na yun, nagkakaroon ng illegal settlers. Siyempre, hindi naman nila mapapaalis yun agad doon.
Basta-basta mapaalis.
Yes. So, yun lang. Those are the things na usually ine-expose ng whistleblowers. And whistleblowers, hindi lang siya yung external or let's say, hindi lang siya diretso agad sa police. Pwedeng, let's say, sexual harassment or harassments that happened in the workplace, i-report sa boss, sa manager, that is also considered as whistleblowing. So, aside from the examples that we provided earlier, kasama rin sa example ng whistleblowing, yung hashtag #MeToo. #MeToo. So, yun yung, hindi siya internal, pero somehow external siya kasi sa social media pinapost. So, it started as a simple hashtag sa Twitter hanggang sa nag-blow up siya. So, that's an example of whistleblowing.
Dati sa mga artista.
Can you repeat that, teacher, Miss G?
#MeToo.
Can you
hashtag #MeToo.
Okay, thank you.
Tapos may bago yung hindi siya bago. Lately lang. The hashtag was started by Frankie Pangilinan.
Iha ako?
Iha ako, yes.
Okay.
So, same lang din siya na ine-expose lahat ng sexual harassments that happen in the office and some sa school. So, those are forms of whistleblowing, modern whistleblowing.
Digital whistleblowing.
Yes, digital.
Share. Hello, ma'am. Sorry. Share ko din. Tawag nito. Sa industry kasi namin, we also have what we call whistleblower. Ang tawag sa kanila, KITAM. So, sa US siya actually, for Medicare and Medicaid, that's the government insurance na pinoprovide ng US. So, one of the parang under the OIG or Office of Inspector General under health sector nila na nagbabantay ng fraud and abuse. So, they are giving provision for whistleblower kasi may mga facility sa US. So, napakarami actually. Maliit man or malalaking facility, kahit malalaking insurance company, they are doing fraudulent business talaga. So, sa US, they have this, yung KITAM provision or whistleblower provision na ginagawa. So, kung halimbawa, ikaw as an employee, let's say, na nag-work sa isang hospital, sabihin natin isang maliit na hospital, tas nakita mo na merong fraudulent activities na ginagawa yung company na yon. Let's say, gumagawa sila ng, alam yung, kumbaga, parang halimbawa, pag nagpa-order ka ng labs, tapos, para lang mailusot nila yung lab na to para ma-approve, gumagawa sila ng mga diagnosis kahit wala naman yung pasyente para lang ma-approve yung procedure na yon. So, it's a common fraudulent activity na ginagawa. So, kung meron kang mga instances that you personally experience and witness na ginagawa siya ng facility na yon, kahit na existing employee ka pa or hindi na, pwede mo siyang i-brought about sa government ng US para imbestigahan. And once the government listen to you, kaya nagbukas sila ng kaso against that facility based on your accusations, syempre kailangan medyo may ebidensya ka din, hindi ka naman kasi pwede alam mo yun, mag point finger lang. Tapos pag napatunayan na it is really true na gumagawa sila ng fraudulent activity, yung mga whistleblower, they can have 15% of the total accumulated amount na marirecover dun sa facility. So, minsan, ginagawang business din siya. Oo. So,
Tao
yun.
nga
Na-share
naman.
ko lang kasi ganun. Oo, pero in a way, it's a good thing because una sa lahat, pinoprotektahan mo kasi Medicare and Medicaid sa government-funded insurance. So, ibig sabihin, tax ng tao ang nagbabayad doon. So, kung may mga ganitong klaseng facility na gumagawa ng fraudulent, binabantayan lang din ng gobyerno, iniingatan lang din yung pera ng tao. So, it's a good practice, kaya lang medyo yun nga. Siguro yun na kasi yung reward system na ginagawa nila para dun sa mga tao. Kasi somewhat, they're risking their life with that, kasi sila yung mag-open up ng case. Pero may witness protection program naman sila. So, that's okay. That's okay.
Yes. I think I don't know if this is relevant, pero somewhat related siya dun sa binanggit ni Journey. My sister in Canada kasi is parang sabi nila, pag TNT ka, wag mong sasabihin sa ibang tao na TNT ka kasi may price, parang ano ba? May price sa Canada kapag magsama, parang 1,000 Canadian dollars ata per pabuya per head. So kahit wag mo daw sasabihin sa kahit sino. So siguro isa din 'yun sa paraan to protect the government ba. Kasi syempre kung TNT ka, may ginawa kang mali, paano ka nila mahuhuli, 'di ba?
Yeah. Ang mahirap kasi lalo na kapag mayroong prize money. Diba? Ginagawa siyang business talaga. Although somehow, may patong yung ulo mo.
Bounty.
Yeah. Pero somehow, I mean, if you're going to relate it to ethics, maganda yung purpose nila. Pero, at the same time,
self-interest.
So,
very wide.
Diba? So, speaking of witness protection, the last topic is witness protection. So, this witness protection is an act in the Philippines protecting citizens or, let's say, previous officials, workers na nag-whistleblow or nag-stand up para i-inform yung police or the government or whoever is in position ng any anomalies within the organization. Now, usually, I mean, sa Pilipinas, what they do is nilalagay nila sa isang facility and they protect the identity of the whistleblower. Pero, I don't know if it's because, again, lack of funds. There are still whistleblowers na
napapatay din.
Napapatumba din. Yes. So, yeah. But this Whistleblower Protection Act of 2009, again, protects people na nag-stand up or nagko-call out ng mga officials or big names in the society sa kung ano man ginagawa nila. Okay. So, any questions po? Walang questions? Okay. So, for your case study presentation or the case study, first, you have to identify an ethical situation confronting a company. So, yung ethical issue or ethical problem ng isang company na publicized or yung present sa media. Second is provide an discuss or give the background ng company. Third is what are the statements ng company regarding or ng business regarding the ethical situation. And as an individual, for the fourth item, as an individual, ano yung mga steps or suggestions na pwede niyo ibigay sa company? Or let's say, kunwari part kayo ng company and then you are asked to give your take or your opinion kung paano ma-resolve yung issue, how are you going to resolve it? So you may use ethical frameworks that we discussed earlier or any ethical framework that is applicable dun sa problem. Okay, so I will send this after the class sa GC. And I will provide the groups. So for group 1, Miss Cecilia. Wait lang. Bakit?
New groupings to, ma'am. Di ba may groupings tayo last time?
Yes po, new groupings.
New groupings. Okay.
Paano ko babalik din? Okay, so for group 1, Miss Cecilia, Miss Idley, Miss Christina, Miss Elizabeth, Miss Karen. So for group 1, 5 members. For group 2, Miss Miriam, Sir Lionel, Miss Ione, Miss Marge. And for group 3, Miss Jovi, Miss Rona, Miss Sheena, and Miss Journey. So, isasend ko rin po ito sa GC para makapag-coordinate kayo sa group mates nyo.
Okay po.
Okay po. So, may tanong pa po? I mean, regarding sa discuss and sa guidelines.
Kailan po yung deadline to?
Friday po. Yun yung ipapresent nyo sa
Next Friday.
Yun na yung final exam nyo. Yung parang ginawa natin sa business history. Yung final exam nyo.
So, ano talaga, yung kailangan talaga namin isusulat kung ano talaga yung pangalan ng actual business na yun.
Yes. Kunwari, ethical issue ng Coca-Cola, ng fast-paced fashions, sweatshops, ganyan.
Tapos, ilalagay namin yung self namin as an employee or owner of the company kung anong gagawin. Parang ganun.
Okay. So, sa tingin nyo, what is, kumbaga, if you're on the shoe of the business owner, paano ma-resolve, possible na ma-resolve yung issue?
Angie,
Yes po.
bahala na po kami kung anong industry.
Yes. Kahit anong industry, kahit anong company.
Okay, so may chance na maging magkapareho ng ibang grupo?
If gusto niyo po, hindi kasi magkaiba kayo ng GC, no? Okay, sige. Ako na lang magbibigay. So, for group 1, sweatshops, any ethical dilemma facing sweatshops. For group 2, ethical issue or any hindi siya necessary na existing even if it was an issue that happened in the past ng Toyota. Yes.
Okay, noted.
For group 3, issue ng wait lang. So this is not just organizational issue, pwedeng environmental issue or whatnot. Pero for group 3, issue ng Wells Fargo. Ethical issue or ethical dilemma ng Wells Fargo.
Wells Fargo.
Yeah. So group 1, sweatshop. Group 2, Toyota. And then group 3, Wells Fargo.
Miss Angeline, one question.
Yes po.
So yung sa Toyota, any of the issues even the past? Kasi as far as I know, medyo madami sila naging issues. So we will just choose any of it, not necessarily the entire unethical issues that they have encountered.
Yes po, just choose one.
Okay, thank you.
Apa. Okay. May tanong pa po?
Gagawa namin yun ng presentation, di ba? Tapos ito-present siya sa
Yes po.
Miss Angeline, itong sweatshop, hindi kasi ako familiar dito. Ano to? Company to?
Ang sweatshop po is, hindi siya brand, hindi siya company. Pero ang issue niya kasi is, hindi sila nagpapasweldo ng yung minimum wage sa workers. So, naging issue to ng H&M, Forever 21. Pwede kayong mamili sa mga brands na yun. H&M, Forever 21. Yun nga, yung minamaximize nila yung workers nila, pero hindi sila nagbabayad ng minimum wage. Yun yung issue ng sweatshops.
Yung sa Toyota ba, regardless kung saang country yun na,
Yes,
na nagkaroon? Okay. Yung mga recalls nila, yung mga ganon.
I think
later Ione will discuss it. Sorry, I'm referring to my group mate Ione. So later we'll discuss it yung sa natin sa Toyota.
So I think sa group 3, I will change it from Wells Fargo to Samsung. Bigla ko siya naisip. Samsung. So, as we all know, one of the issues that they faced is yung exploding units. How did they respond?
Note 7 ba yun?
Note 7?
Samsung Note 7.
Note 7. Yes. So, Group 1, sweatshops. Group 2, Toyota. Group 3, Samsung. Okay. Any questions pa po?
Wala namang number of limited numbers ng pages for the
Wala
case
po.
study.
And,
Okay, thank you.
presentation po siya or so PowerPoint or Word file?
Both po.
Okay.
Both, or we can choose either Word file or presentation.
Yung sa Word po kasi, yun yung magiging final output nyo. Tapos,
okay, then, okay.
Pwede nyo na siya i-transfer sa PowerPoint.
Okay.
Yung sa presentation po ba, lahat ng group or magpipili lang po?
Depende po kung gusto nyo ng lahat mag-present or may representative
okay.
lang.
Okay po.
Presentation, that will be for next week, for next
Yes po.
meeting?
Next meeting, yes. So, there's no number of slides. I know minimum, maximum number of slides. Walang minimum or maximum minutes ng presentation.
Either we can choose one or a few issues. It depends on our presentation.
Yes, depende po sa gusto ng group. Okay, meron pa po? May questions pa po?
Miss Angie, sino yung sa group 1?
Group 1, Miss Cecilia, Miss Idly, Miss Christina, Miss Elizabeth, Miss Karen.
Ma'am, yung sa group 2, pa-repeat po ulit.
Group
So
2,
we can start then.
Apo, Miss Maria, Sir Lionel, Miss Ione, Miss Marge.
So, apat
Tatlo.
lang kami.
Yes po. Kasi ano kayo? Ilan ba kayo? 14, 13. So, group 1 is
Ilan po
5.
kami sa group 2? Ilan po
4.
kami sa group 2?
4.
Sino po yung isa? Miriam, Marge, Ione?
Si Sir Lionel po.
Si Lionel. Okay.
Lionel Franco.
Thank you.
Apo.
Ma'am, sa group 3 na rin po pa-repeat.
Apo. Miss Jovi, Miss Rona, Miss Sheena, Miss Journey.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Apo. Anything else po?
Okay na pa, ma'am.
Okay na po. How about the others po? Wala na pong tanong?
Siguro ma'am, we can have a separate group 1, group 2, group 3, and then we will come up with a specific day when we can have a Zoom meeting as well.
Yes po.
Yeah.
Anything else po?
I think we're done. No po.
Okay. So yeah, if no questions na po, I'll dismiss na, let's end the class today. And then I'll see you guys next week.